Today I'm going to be talking about when is the right time to replace or upgrade your backpacking and camping gear. I've had these trail runners 2 years now, and I bought them to hike the Cumbria Way. I've absolutely loved these. I've hiked loads of miles in them. They've been really comfortable, but as you can see, they've seen a lot better days. I've been looking at replacing these for quite a while. Joe told me to get some new ones. I picked up the Lone Peak 9 version at the And Social event and then put them back down again, and I nearly bought some at the Outdoor Expo in Birmingham last month. And 2 weeks ago I finally pulled the plug and bought the new ones, but it turns out I left it too late. These old faithfuls, they let me down big time. I was coming down off the tops after a hike and I slipped. What is it that little lad says in the Goonies? Slick shoes. The soles on these are absolutely knackered. Look at the difference in the tread. I'd let these ones go way too far. I should have upgraded them a long time ago. It got to the point, clearly, after slipping, that these weren't the safest option anymore. You need to know when you're outdoors, whether that be hiking or backpacking, that your gear is going to be up to the job. Keep you safe, stop you from slipping and falling over, protecting you from wind and rain. So my stupidity has raised the question, when should you actually think about upgrading your gear? There isn't a strict timeline that says you need to upgrade certain bits of gear after so many months or so many years. It's more of a combination of things such as wear and tear, how often you use your equipment. Is there a decrease in performance or something that should be raising safety concerns? I thought I'd do a little bit of a breakdown of some of the common gear types and then finish off with some general guidelines. Because I've brought one with me, I'll start off with a backpack. Just look out for any significant tears or fraying. So I've had a few problems with backpacks before. I had a Vango backpack where the shoulder strap actually tore off here. I've had padding deteriorate, so the carrying of the pack has been uncomfortable. I've had buckles snap and break on me. Zips quite commonly fail as well. I did do a repair there on my Vango bag, but the sewing did keep coming undone. It's never the same when I did it. Your pack is actually one of your most important bits of gear. You've got to carry everything else in it, and it's got to be comfortable. So if sometimes you're carrying that for many miles over multiple days. Sometimes as well, the first pack that you get, it might not fit you properly. It could be that you've gone from a teenager to an adult, so the sizing is wrong, or you've inherited one or bought one cheaply when you're just starting out. Fit is one of the most important things when it comes to backpacks, so you might need to upgrade just for that reason alone. Maybe you put on a little bit of timber as well and you physically can't get it to fasten around your belly. Moving on to your shelter, I'm not going to say just tent because it applies for tarps, hammocks, things like that. Look out again for visible tears. Your shelter needs to keep you safe from wind, rain, so it really needs to be waterproof. I recently went camping in my old Vango Banshee 300 and the fly sheet, it just absorbed water. The water repellent coating, it just perished, it had gone. When I packed it away last time, it had been reproofed using Fabsil, but there are times when the material is just beyond repair. Sometimes, especially on cheaper tents, the layers of the fabric delaminate or coatings deteriorate. You ever seen any tents that look like they've faded in colour? So this generally indicates that it's suffering from UV damage, which actually weakens the strength of the material. So if your tent fly is starting to go stretchy and saggy, or it's not being an effective waterproof cover anymore, then it's definitely time to upgrade. Sleeping bags are another one of those things that if you look after them, they can last you years, but it might get to the stage where your bag's not actually keeping you as warm as it used to. It may not be lofting as much as it used to. You could try getting it cleaned or running it through the washing machine, although you need to watch a few videos on how to do that because it is quite an art. Every time I empty my tent out, there are little tiny bits of down in there from somewhere, so the filling does actually escape. So keep it clean. And another thing you can do to extend the life of your sleeping bag is to not store it in its compressed state. So only squash it down when you're going on a trip and it needs to fit into your backpack. When you've got it at home, let it loft out, put it in its lofting bag or hang it up in the wardrobe. It definitely helps keeping your bag loft in for longer. But what about your sleeping pads? So the closed cell foam ones, they're not indestructible, but they can last you a very long time. Eventually you will get little holes here and there in them, but they generally still keep you warm, although they're not very comfortable. But after a while, this kind of foam can get compressed. If you're not having a comfortable night's sleep, then it's probably time to replace it. The inflatable ones, I've had to actually have a few of those replaced. If you get a little puncture from a thorn or something like that, it's generally quite easy to repair yourself. I have had one occasion where the internal baffle split on a sleeping pad, and it just makes a big balloon on your pad, so you can't comfortably sleep on it. Needed to be replaced. I've had a defective valve before as well, so if you get a leak from a valve, it's usually quite difficult to repair that, and it means that your pad's on its last legs and you need to get it replaced. If you're constantly having problems with your pad deflating during the night, so you've got to pump it up again, replace it and get something better. Similar to sleeping bags, you might find that you're going camping in colder conditions, and your current sleeping bag or sleeping pad isn't rated to those temperatures. Sleep is probably one of the most important things, and if you're not having a warm enough or comfortable enough night's sleep due to your sleeping bag or your sleeping pad, then it's probably time to replace either one or both of those. When should you replace your camping stove? Well, I've told Joe that it's every week, but that's more to do with my obsession than it is to do with anything wrong with my stoves. But in all seriousness, there are occasions when you do need to replace it. If significant parts of the stove break, or there are any safety concerns. So I've had occasions where I've had a stove that it just flares up, or the gas pressure is irregular, and it doesn't matter which canister I've put on. Sometimes you get high flame, sometimes you get a low flame. If you can't control the flame, then I think it's an unsafe stove, so it's probably time to replace it. I've also had a couple of stoves that have leaked. So, when I screwed the stove onto the canister, there's been gas escaping, and safety first. You don't want to be lighting a lighter or sparking up anywhere near where there's leaking gas, so get rid of it and replace it. Also, the current stove that you've got might not be suitable for the type of camping that you want to do, or even allowed in some places. There's some parts of the world where you're not allowed to use a twig stove or an alcohol stove, so you might need to replace it with a gas stove. But in general, a stove is one of those things that last decades and usually don't need a lot of maintenance. So there's one bit of gear that I replace every year, whether I've used it a lot or not, and that is a water filter. So some water filters say that they'll do 500 litres, some say they'll do 10,000 litres, and I don't keep count. They haven't got a little ticker on them saying how many you've used. And they're one of those things that can look perfectly fine, yet not be working properly or keeping you safe. You don't want to be suffering from waterborne diseases or anything like that. A given example is that if you've got one of the hollow fibre, or some of the hollow fibre filters, if they freeze, then it breaks inside and you can't see that it's damaged, and you could be letting pathogens through when you're filtering your water. Obviously depending on the filter, but if I do think that it's maybe compromised, I'll just replace it. What about rain gear? Your waterproofs. I've got a couple of Paramo jackets which are not technically 100% waterproof, but they are classed as rain gear, and I've had them for over 10 years, but they're one of those things. Now, modern day waterproofs, you have to constantly look after them and maintain them. So each garment's different, but something like a Paramo jacket, because it's not got a membrane, if you've got a tear down it, you could actually stitch that up and it won't affect the performance. Whereas a Gore-Tex style jacket with a tear in it, if you stitch it up, it won't be waterproof anymore in that area. You could put a waterproof patch on it, but I don't think it would hold for a long tear anyway. So all of these garments will come with some sort of DWR coating on them, which stands for durable water repellent, which is what makes the water bead on your coat. When you first get it, it's brand new, all the little droplets form on the outside of your jacket. But after a while that wears off, and you do have to either re-wash some in or spray some on, and that should revive the water repellency of the garment, so the water should bead off again for a little while. If you find that adding DWR no longer works, then it's probably time to replace the coat, or if a lot of these jackets have got different layers on them, so some might be a triple layer jacket. If the layers start to delaminate and come apart again, it's time to replace it. Like most things, a lot of it is common sense really, but we don't always use common sense, do we? But I have got a few general guidelines as well. Make sure to just give your gear a little check over before and after every trip, looking for any signs of wear and tear. And if there's anything that is small, you know, address it while it's small. So if you've got a little tiny tear in one of your coats that you can patch it up while it's small before it turns into a big tear. Same again, whether it's your backpack or a little pin prick in your tent. Maybe a little bit of seam sealer would do that. You need to ensure that you properly maintain your gear as well. That means keeping it clean or making sure that it's put away dry. So once you've been camping, for example, don't leave your tent stored away wet through. That is a surefire way of ruining it. Try not to keep your fabrics like your tent materials and your sleeping bags crushed up when you're storing them. You know, let them spread out a little bit. Just doing those things will massively increase the lifespan of your gear. I need to practice what I preach. Remember, safety first. If something, you know, is going to cause safety concerns, a stove leaking or slips because you've got no tread on your bloody trainers, just replace it straight away. Contrary to some of the videos you might have seen on YouTube, camping should be fun and comfortable. So if your gear is not keeping you comfortable anymore, it might be time to replace it. That doesn't mean to say that you've got to throw it in the bin. You know, you might have some perfectly serviceable gear that you can either donate to a charity shop or sell it on eBay and help towards fund something that's a little bit more comfortable. And then you've got advances in technology. So camping gear is constantly getting lighter, slightly more increased in performance. Newer gear might have improved features, and it's definitely getting more expensive. But don't feel the need to upgrade from, you know, perfectly good gear that you've already got just because some bloke on YouTube says he likes it. Ultimately, whether you replace your gear or not is down to your judgment. If it's no longer performing as it should do, it's no longer keeping you safe, or it's significantly affecting your comfort, then you might want to consider replacing it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't do what I do. After all, you're all big boys and girls. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.